the point of it is that I'm attracted, and then I start giving up pieces of myself in order to be in this. I turn a blind eye to red flags that I can, in years later, I can look back and say, wow, that was an early red flag. I'll give you one example. One example of that is somebody I know who wrote a book. And in an early stage, this person, read the book and read the draft of the book and made some comments before it went to publication. And when this book gained a huge amount of popularity, when there was a lot of credit going to the way of the writer, the other person said, well, of course, you see, that would never have happened. You would never have got that if I hadn't helped you. And that's a massive red flag. But of course, at the time, we don't see it. At the time, we're not listening. All those filters have been switched off because we're attracted. We're attracted like a moth to the light bulb. And then eventually what happens is it all starts to turn. It all starts to turn, and there's criticism, there's volatile tantrums, there's nothing you can do is good enough, there's lots of complaints. Then it feels like somehow we went from being adored and loved to being put under a microscope and having every single flaw held up and called out and criticised. And the problem is that we're so addicted, I might say. We're so addicted or enthralled by what was that we keep hoping it's going to come back. And that's where we're in the entanglement. We hope that we can get back to that. If only I could just change this, and if only I could just change that, and if only I could be a bit more attentive, and if only I could, just alter this or change myself in this way, or stop seeing these people, or stop doing this. And then suddenly we're pedaling really hard and working far too hard to stay in relationship, because we're harking back to the dream that will never come back. And of course, when things change in our life, then one of the first things that happens to us is disbelief. So we go into disbelief that, it was amazing. So how has it turned so awful? And there's a disbelief. And if there's any self-doubt in yourself, if you are not confident, if you haven't done that work and you allowed that fake love to come in and all that attention because it was filling a hole in yourself, then of course you're going to go into disbelief. You're going to doubt yourself, and you're going to believe that it's you. And of course, the other person is going to feed that belief that it's you. And part of that is because of the way we've been indoctrinated in our society, which, I'll talk about that in another episode. Because, when we're children and we go to a place called school, what do we do to kids? We test them and we test them and we test them. We're constantly tested. There's just always another test and another test and another test. That isn't nature. That isn't love. That isn't who we're meant to be in the world. And that being constantly tested it becomes in relationship, if somebody is actually pulling you into that, what they're doing, they're testing you and testing you. It has a familiarity. And we need to come back to a place of, well, who am I in the world? What is it? Where is my confidence? Just by the fact of being a human being, just the fact of you being born into this world gives you validity, equality. It gives you a vibration of love. And somehow in our society, we erode that. We just erode it and erode it. And so it's not surprising that at a systemic level, we erode our validity as human beings, as being light, loving beings, that we will then repeat that in the microcosms of our individual relationships. Okay, so we were love bombed, you know, we had all this attention festooned on us, and somehow our ego loved that. And then it started to move into sort of criticism and being put under a microscope and not being good enough. And if we don't do something about it at that stage, which is the observing and noticing and finding my own loving place and getting support, then it crosses a line into abuse. And that abuse can take many forms. I mean, it can actually cross into physical abuse, physical violence, and it can work in emotional abuse, which actually can make you think you're going mad. I mean, you know, you start to question yourself, you start to doubt yourself. And one of the ways in which emotional abuse is visited on us is, of course, this term gaslighting. And it's an important term because we need to be able to notice it. We need to be able to notice, what did I say? What did I do? And how is that being retold later on? How is that? How is what happened? How is that story being rewritten? And if you're not working on your inner confidence, your inner love, and your external support mechanisms, this will only get worse.